firewall devices are for. Now you bring up the transparent mode. I didn't even know a transparent mode was a thing until I got into the OT universe about 10 years ago. That whole
Mm-hmm.
transparent bump in a wire. I had heard something similar from Palo Alto that they had done that they called it I forget what they
V-wires.
called it.
And a Fortinet calls theirs virtual wire, I think, or
Oh,
that's one of the
V-wire.
ways you
Yeah,
can
so
do it.
that's
Yeah.
what I believe that's what Palo Alto was
Palo
calling
calls
it
it.
too. And that concept didn't quite hold with me until I got into the industrial universe, and then the whole concept made a whole lot more sense because I was playing with my first little M guard, and you either have that M guard in a router firewall mode or you have it in a transparent mode. And again, I didn't even know that was a thing. So that was a real eye opener for me on what you can do to control and segment and isolate systems while still allowing the proper amount of data to go through that needs to go through, but not having to readdress everything and not having to NAT everything, you know.
Well, and that flexibility, like I remember we had a large oil and gas customer that had developed a segmentation plan and a re-IP plan to go out to all these compressor stations and re-IP, but that's not going to happen overnight. And they wanted to improve their posture as quickly as possible. So one of the things we're able to do is like, yeah, if you can get one of these products, MGuard's a good example. We did it with a Hirschman Eagle at the time, where it's like this thing can run in either operating mode. So today you can go drop these in today without needing to re-IP immediately and write some rules about what can come through this thing. But then when the re-IP is complete, you can switch this thing into a routed firewall mode and continue to use that same hardware that you bought and spent money on, and leverage it kind of before, through, and after the re-IP. So it's kind of nice for to get that flexibility because like there are such things out there that are like literally only transparent firewalls, like the Tofinos from back in the day, or there's a couple of products that's the only mode they operate in. But I sort of like the ones where they can be multi-personality like that, and you can sort of ride a customer through this journey in case they are eventually doing this re-IP anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah, so you get
I
you get
use
that like,
some. I'm
oh,
sorry. Go
sorry,
ahead,
Scott.
Jeremy.
I was gonna say you get that kind of like you can crawl, walk, run with them
Yes.
through it, right? And say, hey,
Yep.
this will shore it up a little bit now, but then
Yep.
you're not having to replace the product later on down the road.
Exactly.
Yeah, the context I had used the Phoenix and transparent mode was for some wireless I/O.
Mhm.
Was hiding some wireless I/O behind it, so they made sure that only the specific protocols were going through, and there was no re-IPing everything. And
Mhm.
that was pretty important to them at that point in time. So,
And speaking
um,
of, like, I have one that's wireless related too. I had made a video a few months ago where we got a call from the field where they had added some new drives, VFDs, and some I/O to a system. And part of this sort of sprawling system was a narrowband radio network out to like a dozen small PLC panels. And we're talking like maybe 2 to 400 kbps. I mean, it was slow enough to where they had to round robin the PLC polling of these remote stations. And it worked fine until they added this handful of new stuff onto the network. And they're like, ever since we've added these new devices, like we're just not getting consistent polling of these remote locations. And you know how the situation is sometimes you're getting phone call of a phone call of a phone call. I don't get packet captures or anything to see exactly what's going on. I was like, look, I think we can guess that master radio of this point to multi-point network is seeing stuff it wasn't seeing before. I don't know if we're occupying the airwaves or if we're locking up the radio, but one of the two things is happening, and it'd be good if we could limit what is coming to that radio. And so the point of that video is we were going through all the options of like, what are the things we can do to limit traffic to the radio? How quickly can we get it done? What does it mean in terms of deploying hardware? And so we're going through options, including ACLs in the radio themselves, deploying a transparent firewall, leveraging like private VLAN capability in a switch that was already out there so we could just make changes remotely. But it was all in this context about, yeah, limiting what's going to the wireless network. And in that case, it wasn't necessarily, again, security driven. It was just a pure operational robustness reason. Like this could not handle the additional traffic it was seeing. We need to shield this narrowband radio network from this new additional traffic.
yeah, absolutely. Even blocking, even Even just blocking broadcast and multicast traffic can clear a lot of that up. But I mean, when you start talking about multicast, that's a whole nother rabbit hole that you can go down that can disrupt a lot of different things.
Well, I talk a lot about how both those categories, like broadcast traffic, like minimizing size of broadcast domains because OT devices, especially legacy ones, just can't tolerate a lot of extra stuff. And then, yeah, I think you already know I talk ad nauseum about multicast leaks on networks, and I'm talking about them tipping over, wired OT devices, controllers, I/O drives, whatever. Well, now we're adding to the mix. We're talking about radios. And I think sometimes, depending on the vintage and the category, it definitely falls into that same thing of they're not trying to listen to all this extra noise. They don't